The madness has officially begun, and even though it doesn't feel like it, it'll get there soon. Hopefully. Anyways, I'm your host, Sean Paul, here with
Andrew
and
Elisha.
And this is CoogsTalk March Madness Edition, where we'll be talking about both the men's and women's tournaments and see who is gonna become champions. So, are you two ready?
So ready.
Let's get it.
All right, so before we move on, how are your brackets doing?
Man, my bracket is in shambles. I'll tell you what. So Clemson, they kind of messed my bracket up. I had them going all the way to the Sweet 16. They lost first round. I had Iowa State going to the Final Four to play Auburn, not Auburn, to play Florida. They lost. Memphis going to the Sweet 16. They cooked my bracket, so my bracket's under 50%. It's not looking good.
My bracket is doing a lot better than Andrew's, I will say. I'm at 89%. Honestly, I think I predicted a little too many upsets because I'm more of a casual men's basketball watcher, so I was like, they always talk about the upsets in March Madness, so I picked a couple of the lowest seeds to win, and they didn't. So that kind of got me. Same with Arkansas. I thought Arkansas was going to be out in the first round, and they proved everybody wrong, I think. So, but overall, pretty good bracket. I'm chilling.
Yeah, I actually made six brackets, and I have only one that's over 90%, and that was my Duke bracket that was made by ESPN Plus Analyzer. I decided, AI take control.
Yeah.
Okay, so enough brackets. So let's get on with these tournaments. First up, the men's, and boy, the Sweet 16 matchups. Auburn versus Michigan, Duke versus Arizona, Ole Miss versus Michigan State, BYU versus Alabama, Florida versus Maryland, Texas Tech versus Arkansas, Houston versus Purdue, and Kentucky versus Tennessee. So, first question, who do you see as pretenders and who do you see as contenders?
I'll let you take the floor.
Oh, okay. I mean, I feel like maybe Auburn could be pretenders. I mean, at the end of the regular season, they kind of fell off a little bit. Other than that, I think I'm not really sure. I feel like Arkansas could, do an upset against Tech, maybe just because of the momentum they have coming into this game. Maybe Maryland could. I think this Florida team is really good, so maybe not Maryland. But I think maybe Auburn and Tech might be my pretenders. I think my contenders, I gotta go for the Cougs always, as well as Florida and Duke. I think are also my contenders for this round.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with a lot of what you said. I think that Auburn's a big pretender. I think they either lose this week to Michigan. If not, they lose next week to the winner of Ole Miss and Michigan State. I also think Michigan State is a pretender as well. Ole Miss is hot at the right time, and Michigan State, while they had that experience with Coach Tom Izzo, I think that this might be the end of their tournament run, but we'll see. Obviously, my contenders got to go for my Cougs. I obviously have us winning the whole bracket. I think Duke is a major contender. They've had no struggle in both of their games, winning by 15 plus in both of them. I also think Florida's nice too. Florida's probably got the deepest team in the tournament. So, outside of those 3 1 seeds, I don't think there's anybody else that's really competing for the title. So we'll just have to see what happens in the next rounds.
Yeah. So speaking of 1 seeds, how would you rate them on a scale of best to worst?
I would say my best is probably Duke. Duke has obviously the projected number 1 pick in Cooper Flagg. They've got an experienced Tyrese Proctor. I just think that as far as history of the program, they're the top. I would follow that up with going with U of H, best defensive team in the country in my opinion. Coach of the Year finalist and Kelvin Sampson. And then I would probably go Florida right after that, and then Auburn at the bottom.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think just Duke's overall dominance this season is we've all seen it. And then obviously with UH, Calvin Sampson obviously up for Coach of the Year, JoJo Tugler up for Defensive Player of the Year. I think we've also just kind of started to peak a little bit at the right times, which has been really important. I think the Gonzaga game, that first half at least, I think was just a really great performance overall by everybody. And then Florida, I think that UConn game was a little shaky, but in the end they ended up, they got the victory, and that's what that mattered. And then Auburn, again, I just don't think they're at the same level as all the other 1 seeds.
Okay, so let's end the men's tournament by saying who do we all think is going to win. So first up, Auburn versus Michigan. I got Michigan for the upset.
I've got Auburn going past this round, but I have them losing in the Elite Eight.
I have Auburn winning as well.
Okay, Duke versus Arizona.
I got Duke steamrolling over Arizona this weekend. I think they win by 15 plus.
Yeah, I got Duke too.
I have Duke as well. I feel like that's a no-brainer.
And speaking of Duke, do you think their experience may falter, because this is a very young Duke team, despite their dominance?
I do agree with you. I think experience does plays a factor in the tournament. However, with that being said, I think that sometimes with some of these programs, the team is just too good, and the experience kind of just undermines that. I think that with Cooper Flagg and with Tyrese and their supporting cast, I think that they're just dominant, and the coach is good too. So, I mean, I really don't see them losing anytime soon unless they play maybe a tough Bama team if they win in the next round, or UH in the Final Four.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think all these matchups, I feel confident in Duke's ability, and but I do think experience is important. I feel like when we talk about like championship level teams, there's always those 1 or 2 players that have been in those situations before that know how to bring the team up to that level of just how to play there. So I would say I think experience might bite them in the butt.
Let's steamroll past these final matchups. BYU versus Alabama.
Bama.
Alabama.
Ole Miss versus Michigan State.
Michigan State.
Florida versus Maryland.
Florida, obviously.
Florida. Texas Tech versus Arkansas.
I got the upset. I got Arkansas.
I have Tech on my bracket, but that's when I thought they were playing Kansas initially. But I'm going to go with Arkansas maybe as well.
Yeah, I got Arkansas. They got the momentum. Kentucky versus Tennessee.
I think Tennessee wins easy.
Tennessee.
And finally, our Houston Cougars versus Purdue.
Houston all the way.
Houston all the way.
This is our year.
Yep.
Well, that's it for the men's tournament. Stick around for part 2 where we cover the women's side.